Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me, of course, for the NASCAR episode of Running Hot this week, I have my co-host, Stephen Young of Roto Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're talking bets for the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway here on Running Hot. 2 weekends ago at Darlington, Brad Keselowski won for the first time as a co-owner of Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, breaking a winless streak of more than 100 races for himself. Then last weekend we had the All-Star race, which was won by another Ford driver, Joey Logano, Brad's former teammate at Team Penske. Joey led 199 of the 200 laps at North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. So, Stevie, my question to you is, normally we talk about, is this a good race, is it a bad race? But my question to you is Ford back? Are they back? They just won the last 2 races.
And they've had speed the last 3 or 4 races. So, yeah, I mean, there was a report that came out a few weeks ago that said they had found a little bit of extra horsepower in the engines, and these cars are so close to each other that if you can find a little bit of an edge, it shows, and it has. So, is Ford back? I mean, it definitely seems like they have a lot of speed right now. So I don't know if I want to just say they're back, but going to a 1.5, I think Ford has to be up towards the top of your list. And I think that, obviously Blaney last year was the dominant car at this racetrack. So I think Ford's excited. I would be excited if I'm in a Ford car right now. So I think the answer to your question is, yeah, I mean, we haven't seen this type of speed from Ford since early next gen car when it first came out, and really kind of before the next gen car. So I think Ford's in a good spot right now. And I think if I was in a Ford car, I'd be excited.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, Ford definitely looks like they're back. Another thing I noticed back in Kansas, when it got rain delayed. So it started in the late, afternoon, early evening. And then when it really got into nighttime, the Fords came to life. And hey, Charlotte Coca-Cola 600, most of this is going to be a night race. So definitely think the Fords will be competitive, and I'll be at least talking about them for sure. But we have the Coca-Cola 600. It is coming up after the Indy 500. Now, Stevie, I did an Indy 500 Running Hot episode yesterday that came out, but just wanted to pick your brain real quick on your thoughts on the big race day. We, of course, also have the Monaco Grand Prix for Formula One in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best race day of the year. Obviously we talk a lot about the Daytona 500. You and I love the Daytona 500, but you wake up, you watch Monaco, then you watch the Indy 500, and then you watch the Coke 600. And I mean, you just kind of, say Sundays for racing. Team Penske really fast in Indy, really fast in Indy. So very interested to see that. I mean, if you're Penske, you're kind of pumped right now, right? You're really fast at Indy. Blaney dominated this race last year in the 600. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I can't wait for the Indy 500. I think the Kyle Larson double is really cool just in general. I don't think people realize just how hard the double is. So I'm hoping no weather at Indy. I want to see the double. And I'm rooting for Kyle Larson and Alexander Rossi. You and I were talking before the show. I'm a huge Alexander Rossi fan, and was really cool to see his speed that he had in qualifying for the Indy 500.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think I will be, as a little teaser, be looking to bet some Alexander Rossi in some way, shape, or form. So check out my appearance on Action Network's Green Dot Daily on Friday, and there may be an Alexander Rossi prop in there. So race day, Monaco, Indy, Coca-Cola 600. We're focusing on the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Charlotte is a 1.5 mile track, that what we call the old cookie cutter track. We've run at Texas this year. We've run at Kansas. We've run at Las Vegas. 3 other 1.5 miles that are similar in some ways to Charlotte. So talk about specifically not just racing in Charlotte, but the Coca-Cola 600, because it's a unique beast, right, Stevie?
Yeah, I mean, you start in the daytime, you finish at night. It's long, 600 miles on a 1.5. It has 3 stage breaks instead of 2. So, I mean, it's just a long day. I've been going to the Coke 600 now for 8, 9, 10 years. it's just a really long day. Like, you have so much media stuff and, stuff that you're doing throughout the day. And then, sponsorships. It's a huge weekend. So you have all your sponsors are in town. So you're entertaining all your sponsors. You're doing all your media stuff during the day for the Coke 600. You're watching the Indy 500 too. I mean, everyone is. If you're Kyle Larson, you're running 500 miles at the Indy 500. So it's just a long race. And then, like, you get in the race car and you're like 600 miles on a 1.5. The focus that you have to have for 600 miles is incredible. So, and then, kind of communicating to your crew chief, right? Like, the car is going to change because the race starts at 6 o'clock. It's going to finish around 10 o'clock. There's going to be a lot of changes to the car. This car reacts very differently to the sun and when it gets, nighttime. So, communicating with your crew chief and making the right adjustments. And I mean, again, it's just, there's so much going on for this race that there's so much you got to do. So yeah, I mean, it's a unique race. It's a fantastic race. It's one of the crown jewels because of just how hard it is. I mean, it's not an easy race.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a long race, and there does become a lot of attrition. If we look at the two Coca-Cola 600s in the next gen era, there's been an average of 17 cautions. One with 16, one with 18 cautions. That's a long, long day, especially to end a long racing day. So, that for me, that opens the door to, especially with 3 stages where, when a yellow comes out, all you have to do is stay on the lead lap for 100 laps and you're fine, or just be the first car 1 lap down. And there will be cautions in between some of those stages anyway. So a lot of cars can stay on the lead lap. And then if other cars start falling out or the chaos starts happening, that opens up the door for top 10 finishes. So you're going to see a theme for me this week on my bets. I'm going to be focusing, we like to build outright cards, like 3 or 4 bets to win, maybe sometimes 5 or 6, depending on the race. My card is basically going to be an outright card, but with top 10s. That's how I'm looking at this race. Just trying to hit 1 or 2 top 10 finishes, and I'll have a successful race here because that's how the Coca-Cola 600 is. It's a long race. It can get chaotic, and because these stages are only 100 laps and there's 4 of them, cars can stay on the lead lap more, which gives them an opportunity to end up in the top 10 if they're on the lead lap and we get some late restarts or things like that. So that is kind of the Coca-Cola 600. Let's real quick, talk similar tracks. I know we're probably using Texas, Kansas, Vegas in some way, shape, or form, but are you weighing those any differently?
No, I mean, those are the 3 tracks that I'm going to use. Man, I miss having like Texas without a lot of the like gunk on the track where it's like a 1-lane racetrack. Because like Charlotte's not going to be a 1-lane racetrack. They'll be able to run high, they'll be able to run low. So in like that aspect, like, you think Kansas because of how many multi grooves that Kansas can be. I mean, it's closest to Texas as far as like dimensions and how it sets up. But I mean, racing wise, I think it's going to race like Kansas and Vegas more than Texas because Texas has just turned into a single groove racetrack because of all the stuff on the outside. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm going to look at like Charlotte data because it's such a long race and you get the day to night. Kansas, we kind of got a little bit of day to night. So I'm actually probably going to weigh like Kansas more than anything else this year. Like it changes. I think you have to adjust. And I think this year I want to weigh Kansas as our recent 1.5. We saw the Ford speed in that race. I think weighing Kansas the most is how I'm going to approach this weekend.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to weigh Kansas the most. Obviously, the most recent 1.5. We had that day tonight. We had the higher, better Ford performance there. But I do think weighing Texas also makes a lot of sense because Texas, like Charlotte, has been a race that's produced a lot of cautions over the years. So I think Texas and Kansas would be my 2 most similar to Charlotte, and I'll weigh them much more than I will Las Vegas, for example. But dude, I love Charlotte. Stevie, I hit the outright winner in both races of the next gen era. Had Denny Hamlin in 2022. Had Ryan Blaney last year at 30-1. I've won a daily fantasy world championship qualifier from Charlotte, the 600. So this is a good track for me. So I'm going to hope to keep the ball rolling here with our picks here. And hopefully our victory lane pick. I like it. I like our victory lane pick. Hopefully that gets the job done. But any last intangibles for the 600? I know maybe something like pit stops with such a long race and so many pit stops. We might be on that Christopher Bell angle again.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be, right?
Right.
Like if he could just get on to pit road and like through pit road, well, like he would have won. His pit crew won the pit road challenge, and he started what, like third or fourth or something, because he just like he does such a bad job, like driver wise on pit road this year. I don't know, he's
Yeah.
just not being aggressive enough or whatever, but his pit crew has just been absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, you could play that angle. We should get at least one pit stop in every single stage. And that's going to put you on pit road at least probably what, 8 times at minimum.
Minimum
So
7. Yeah.
yeah, minimum
Middle of
7.
each stage, and then between each stage would be 7.
Yep. Yeah. So I feel like, pit road is obviously going to matter. So that gives a little bit of bump to the pole sitter who, gets that number one pit stall. It's not a huge advantage here like it is at like Darlington, but it's nice to
Right.
be able to like cleanly get in and cleanly get out of your pit box when you have that number one pit stall.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Agree with you there, I should say. So that is our Coca-Cola 600 preview. Now it is time to dive into the bets. As always, Stevie and I are going to ride around for a lap at Charlotte Speedway with you all. That is 4 turns, 1 pick from Stevie, and 1 pick or maybe multiple from me this week per turn before we drive into victory lane. So we're going to throw the green flag on the Coca-Cola 600 in that 2 wide start. We're going to lead the field into turn 1. Okay, Stevie, turn 1. You're joining me on my theme here with a top 10 bet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go to Noah Gragson, top 10, plus 210 at BetMGM. Noah Gregson's been fantastic this season. I don't think people realize just how good he has been. He's been, I mean, 11th in speed on the 1.5s, and we're getting him at plus 210. So instant value when you're looking at a guy that ranks 11th in speed. So, he had a lot of speed last year in this race before he had some issues. So that's always already a good sign. He started kind of slow, but he was really fast before he had issues in the second stage. But I think Noah Gragson, with his aggressiveness and how good he's been this year for a top 10, makes a lot of sense. And he's been qualifying really good. So, like, getting that qualifying speed and, like, getting the track position to start the race here on a 1.5 is really good. So, I mean, just all signs point to this being a value bet. So, I'm going to take it here at plus 210.
Yeah, I like it. The only reason I haven't bet it myself is because I'm just going with a little bit more of a longer shot type card on my top 10s, but I do have value on Noah Gragson plus 210. He's been fantastic. For my turn 1 pick, I'm going to go to his teammate, Chase Briscoe, for a top 10 finish. You can get that at plus 450. I wrote it up on actionnetwork.com, and it was 5-1 then. It's now plus 450 as the longest out there, but I still love this at plus 450. If we go back to last year, the start of 2023, that team was terrible on intermediates, the number 14 team specifically for Stewart-Haas Racing. And outside of that little first half stretch of 2023, which was like, they had like lame car syndrome. Outside of that, the other 4 races at Charlotte or Texas in the next gen era for Chase Briscoe, he's finished inside the top 10 in all of them. So that right there just makes 4.5 to 1 too long for Chase Briscoe. And you just add in all the factors from Charlotte here, the potential chaos. And hey, Chase Briscoe was going for the win in the 2022 Coca-Cola 600 when he crashed going for the lead and still finished 4th because we had another late restart. So this is a track that's been good for him. I mean, he almost got the win here in this next gen car 2 years ago. So I'm going to go Chase Briscoe top 10 finish for my turn 1 pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, when you're looking at Fords, there's a lot of value at Fords because they're being undervalued because of their performance this year. But you have to look at like the last 3 or 4 races and say, hey, Ford might actually be onto something. And I think Stewart-Haas, 3 of the 4 cars for Stewart-Haas actually have been pretty solid this season. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind this one at all. I'm showing it like really close to value in my model.
Yeah, there we go. So turn 1, Stevie is on Noah Gragson, plus 210 at BetMGM, and I am on Chase Briscoe plus 450. So that's turn 1. We're going to get through the center of the corner and come off turn 2. All right, turn 2, Stevie. This is the first outright bet for this podcast this week in terms of the NASCAR side of things. What is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've bet 3 outrights this week, and all 3 of them are on this podcast. So there you go.
There we go.
I'm going to start with Bubba Wallace here at 30-1 over there on BetMGM. I did do a half a unit on this, so 30-1, get a half a unit. That's 15 units. It's a really good one. So, all right. So here's my philosophy. Right, my philosophy is when we were at Kansas, the Toyotas were set up for more of a day race, and they weren't able to adjust a lot when it came to the weather and everything. I have no issues thinking that these cars are going to be fast. They were so fast at Las Vegas. They're so fast at Texas. I mean, Truex and Denny Hamlin were the 2 best cars at Kansas. And we were really like, where was 2311? I really think 2311 was just set up for a day race at Kansas, and they just were completely off and weren't able to adjust where you have the 2 veterans, right? Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex, where they can make adjustments and make the car better throughout the day. So I think this is a good one. I think any Toyota that you can get at 30-1 out of JGR or 2311 is an insta bet for me coming into a 1.5. So, I mean, Bubba Wallace is going to have speed. They made the car so much better last year throughout the race. I was looking at it. They started really slow, and then they had a ton of speed in the last 150 laps. So maybe they found something that they can kind of build off of last year towards the end of that race. And I mean, my model's just screaming value with Bubba Wallace at 30-1. So you can get this over there on BetMGM. And yeah, I mean, any JGR or 2311 car at 30-1, I'm going to bet.
Yeah, I mean, you're showing value on it. My buddy Jim Sonis is showing value on it. I appeared on his Covering the Spread podcast, and I talked about this specific bet, Bubba Wallace 30-1. I'm pretty much right in line with the market at 31, but when we have 2 of you showing value and me right in line with the market, I think overall I'm a big proponent of model averaging. So I can definitely get there on Bubba Wallace 30-1. And actually, this is one of the ones I proposed to you for potential victory lane. So I'm definitely on board with Bubba Wallace 30-1 at BetMGM. For my turn to pick, I'm sticking with this top 10 theme, and I'm going to take one of the combatants in that post-race all-star fight, and I'm going to take Ricky Stenhouse Jr. top 10 finish 5-1 at BetMGM. I'll go through my unit sizing on all of these at the end because I'm sizing everything so that as long as I hit 1 top 10 bet, I'll make money. And then if we hit 2, that's like a great day. So I'll go through the unit sizing at the end there, but just know that every single pick I'm giving is going to be a top 10 pick. But I'm taking Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a top 10. If we look at Charlotte, specifically for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., over the last 9 Charlotte races, he's finished inside the top 15 in all but one of them. So when you're constantly finishing inside the top 15, it's just one of those things where you're going to get some top 10s, and he has. He has 2 7th place finishes in the Coca-Cola 600 in the next gen car, and he's 5-1. So, you know, obviously these intermediates have been a good track type for Stenhouse. He hasn't quite had the results. Like at Texas, he had a great car. He had probably one of the better cars at Texas, definitely a top, 10 car for sure. And just didn't get the result there because he got trapped a lap down, for example. I even bet Stenhouse outright live at Texas. That's how good he looked at Texas. 16th at Kansas, 17th at Las Vegas. That's right in that range where he's, if you're constantly in that top 15 or so, 5-1 is just a little too long. And specifically Charlotte, like I said, it's been a great track for him. He had a 10th place in 2018, a 5th place in 2019. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just always seems to get it done at Charlotte, a 4th in 2020. So I like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. top 10, 5-1.
I'm tailing it. I'm in. He's finished top 10 in both races here with the next gen car. All the interviews and stuff that he's been in this week, every single one I feel like I've listened to that he's talked about, like Charlotte's one of his best tracks and he really likes this place. So yeah, I mean, Stenhouse, like in shape wise, is probably one of the best in shape drivers in NASCAR. So like 600 miles, it definitely benefits guys that are like this. And like, again, it's not something we talk about all the time because all these guys are, I mean, go drive 600 miles at 180 miles an hour. You're not going to be able to do it because these guys are just professionals. So yeah, I mean, I like Stenhouse. I like what I'm seeing. Average running position for the Charlotte races, 12th or better. So yeah, I mean, I'm in. I mean, there's no reason not to follow you up on this one. So I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. So turn 2, Stevie going with Bubba Wallace 30-1 half a unit at BetMGM. I'm taking Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a top 10 finish, 5-1 at BetMGM. So we've completed half a lap. We are going down the backstretch toward turn 3. But before we get to turn 3, I want to remind you all, Running Hot is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming, bonus code ACTION will give new users in North Carolina $150 in bonus bets for betting just $5. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, we are through turns 1 and 2. We've gone down the backstretch, and it's time to roll into turn 3. All right, turn 3, Stevie. I know you have given one Toyota to win. It looks like you're just on Toyota in general here in turn 3.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Toyota as the race-winning manufacturer at plus 150. I mean, we paid minus money at this almost every 1.5 this year. So
yeah,
I feel like the books are like kind of over-adjusting. But, I mean, you look at Kansas, and Denny was the fastest car. Truex was the second fastest car. They had a lot of speed with Christopher Bell late in that race. This is just going to be one of those things where, again, it was a race where it started in the daytime and finished in nighttime. We're going to get that. Martin Truex Jr. is one of the best at starting at day, going to night. Like every Coke 600, I think Martin Truex Jr. is in play. So getting Truex, getting Hamlin, and then like if we just look at 1.5 speed this year, 4 of the top 5 are Toyotas. It's Hamlin, Larson, Truex, Gibbs, and Reddick. So I'm looking at overall 1.5 speed and saying, hey, 4 of the top 5 are Toyotas. So yeah, I do think William Byron's going to be good this weekend. I do think like the Roush Fenway cars are going to be good. I think Blaney's going to be good. But Toyota, like getting Toyota at plus 150 with, I mean, all the speed that they've had, I'm in. So I'm getting on my Toyota train again this week. And I mean, do I like Ford? Yeah, I mean, I do like Ford. But I really think like Toyota is the team to beat this weekend. And Kyle Larson might be a little tired, so maybe I can beat Kyle Larson with like a Hamlin or a Truex. I'm hoping it's Truex or Bubba Wallace or Ty Gibbs. Hint, hint.
Yeah, there we go. So you mentioned how Hamlin and Truex were the fastest at Kansas. We remember Tyler Reddick was catching Kyle Larson at Vegas for the win there. Probably had the best car at the end. At Texas, Reddick and Hamlin were 1-2 in green flag speed by quite a bit. Now Hamlin, of course, obviously didn't race the whole race there. He had some issues. No, he raced the whole race. He just finished 30th, way back at the end of the lead lap there. But these guys have been fast, right? Toyota's been fast, yet they have not won a single mile-and-a-half oval this year. I'm tailing you on this one. Plus 150, I'm tailing you on this one. You know, Toyota's been the best at all 3 races, or arguably the best at all 3 races, and haven't won one yet. That feels like bad luck. You mentioned Ford has gained that speed. I feel like the market has adjusted for that, which has downward adjusted Toyota, and I think this is the spot to buy in on Toyota. So, Stevie, tailing you on your turn 3 pick. For my turn 3 pick, I'm going to a pair of Ford top 10s. Now, I already gave out Briscoe, who's a Ford, as top 10, but that was a little different just because that was the one I wrote up for Action Network and was my favorite bet of the week. But I have a pair of Ford top 10s here. I'm going to take Michael McDowell at 6-1, and I'm going to take Austin Cindric at 10-1 for top 10 finishes. Now, I don't love either of these plays. I do think I like the McDowell play more than the Cindric play, but McDowell's also a little bit shorter, but it just goes with my overall theme. So I think if I were to skip any of the 2 top 10 bets this year, or I should say this episode, I would skip McDowell and Cindric here, but I still like them. I mean, if we look at Michael McDowell, he's performed okay at these intermediate tracks. He did finish 10th at Kansas and 10th at Darlington, so that team is kind of on a roll. So when you just look at that overall record on the intermediate package, I do think it's enough here to where 6-1 is value on Michael McDowell. My model definitely has value on it. I don't think I'm quite as high as my model on McDowell here. And then Austin Cindric's a tough one. You know, he doesn't have a top 10 finish this year other than Atlanta, where he finished 4th. So on normal ovals, he doesn't have a top 10 finish, which makes it really tough to get here. Last year, his only top 10 finishes came on road courses, plus a 9th at Martinsville and a 6th at Las Vegas. I should say road courses or drafting tracks. other than a 9th at Martinsville and a 6th at Las Vegas. So not a guy that finishes top 10 a lot, but I am showing value at 10-1. He did have that 6th place last year at Las Vegas. And Charlotte is just one of those tracks, like I said, where Cindric should be able to stay on the lead lap. And if you're able to stay on the lead lap and hang around that top 20 or so, and we get a lot of chaos as we have seen in the 2 Charlotte races, that is what's going to open up that value for Cindric at 10-1. But it is pretty scary, I'm not going to lie. So if you wanted to skip my turn 3 picks, I'm totally okay with it. But I do have Michael McDowell 6-1 and Austin Cindric 10-1 for top 10 finishes for turn 3.
I like your turn 4 one. This one's scary to me. Michael McDowell Michael McDowell, for me, it's just like, all right, I don't know what to really expect from him on a weekly basis now that like the announcement happened. And like Austin Cindric, I actually like the Cindric one more than I like the McDowell one. Cindric had some speed before he had issues at Kansas. So
yeah, he sure did.
I think building off of that is really good for Cindric because like how like the Penske cars have had speed wise here recently in Ford in general. Like Austin Cindric is not a bad race car driver. I think people give him a lot of crap because of just how bad he's been. But I mean, the whole Penske, look at Joey Logano. He's been struggling. Logano is just so good at certain tracks that he's going to be in the mix. So I think Austin Cindric is one that I can get on a lot more than McDowell. I wish McDowell was further, but I also get it.
Yeah. And like I said, both of these are scary. Now, and to back up your point about Cindric at Kansas, he was 8th in green flag speed. Now, because he had those problems, he didn't get to run some of those extra laps on higher tire wear. So when I flags adjust him, he does drop down, but not too far. I mean, he's in the teens, like 13th right there. So that's great for 10-1 for a top 10 finish. If we're weighing Kansas potentially as the closest to Charlotte this year in terms of the intermediates that we have been to so far this year. So yeah, I do think this is the scary turn, and I do like my turn 4 picks better. So with that said, let's dive into turn 4. All right, turn 4, Stevie. You already talked about this guy. You mentioned on your last pick in the Toyotas, you got Ty Gibbs to win, right?
Yeah, Ty Gibbs 16-1. I'm not missing it, Nick. Like I'm pot committed at this point that like I'm just not missing his first win, and like he's had way too much speed on the 1.5s this year for me not to have interest in him here at 16-1. So
yeah,
I mean, I did a half unit on this one. Again, like half unit to win 8 units, which is perfectly fine with me because when I'm looking at my outrights, I'm invested 2 units so far. So like if I hit 8 at the worst, it's fantastic. So yeah, I mean, Ty Gibbs, again, he ranks 5th in speed on 1.5s. He struggled a little bit at Kansas, but again, none of those cars were set up for a nighttime race, and like the Fords they produce so much speed at the end of those races. So I mean, I think Ty Gibbs is going to be a car to beat. This is his first 600, right? I'm like 90% sure this is his first 600. So there's that aspect, but like he's so young, it doesn't matter. He's going to be fine. He'll get out there and race, and these guys race all the time. But yeah, I mean, struggled at Kansas, a lot of speed at Vegas, a lot of speed at Texas. Just couldn't pass anybody at Texas. So I'm going to take Ty Gibbs here at 16-1. And again, I mention this every time I talk about betting Ty Gibbs. He's really fast in qualifying every week. Like this is going to be a guy that's going to have track position when qualifying rolls around on Saturday night. Like you're not going to be able to get Ty Gibbs at 16-1 because he's going to qualify so well. So, I mean, if you want the 16-1 number, get it early in the week because I mean, he'll likely end up in like the 11 or 12 range because he'll qualify well.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Ty Gibbs, 16-1. It's not value for me in my model.
Oh, it's not for me either. Let me just make that clear. I'm committed.
I'm agreeing with you with this, whole pot committed thing. It feels like, at this point, you kind of just have to ride with him because he is so fast at these tracks. So Ty Gibbs, 16-1 to win. I'm not there yet. I might get there. I might just, I tailed you on that winning manufacturer Toyota. I think that's how I'm going to play Ty Gibbs
there you go.
this week. And just stick with the Bubba outright and the one we have for Victory Lane. For my turn 4, I love these. These are my favorites. I'm going to go with each of the 3 Spire Motorsports drivers to finish in the top 10. So they're all individual bets. I'm not saying all 3 to finish top 10 as a bet, but each individually. So Carson Hocevar at 12-1 for top 10 finish. Corey LaJoie at 16-1 for top 10 finish. And Zane Smith at 16-1 for a top 10 finish. And before I dive into the analysis of them, I want to go through my top 10 bets and give you my sizing. So Chase Briscoe at plus 450, I am doing 1 unit. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 5-1, I'm doing 0.85 units. On Michael McDowell, I'm doing 0.7 units. Austin Cindric, 0.45 units. And for these Spire cars, I have Hosvar at 12-1 at 0.4 units. And LaJoy and Zane Smith at 16-1 each at 0.3 units. And what that does is I have 4 units total risked. And if any of these hit, I will make at worst plus 0.9 units. That would be if Michael McDowell is the lone top 10 finisher. I would still profit 0.9 units. So, it would be, right, I'm risking 0.7 on 6-1, and then I would get that 0.7 back. So that would be how I profit 0.9 units. It would be the worst if Michael McDowell hits. Now, if it hit multiple, then all of a sudden we're looking at a multi-unit probable profit here. So let's talk about these Spire cars. They have been pretty good at the 1.5 mile tracks. If we even go back to Vegas, which I know is the least comparable, all 3 ran really well. Corey LaJoy ran part of that race in the top 5. His average running position before he had his problems was 10.3. Carson Hosvar ran inside the top 15 pretty much the whole day at Vegas. And Zane Smith looked the best of the 3 Spire cars, but he never got to show it because he hit the wall on lap 4. Then we go over to Texas. Zane Smith was in position for a top 5 finish before, like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he kind of got bad luck there on the timing of that last caution. He had made his pit stop, and then the yellow came out, trapping him a lap down, ruining his day in what was probably a top 5 or top 6 finishing day had that race stayed green. And Corey LaJoy as well. He has always been solid, like I mentioned, at the intermediate tracks there. He's been solid, and Hosvar at Vegas. So I think this is just a spot where these guys are too long, especially given the potential for chaos here with average of 17 cautions in the 2 races. Now, Corey LaJoy last year finished 17th. So he doesn't have a top 10 on this track type. So it is a little scary, but it's 16-1. And they're performing much better this year than they have in 2021 or 22 or 23, right? Spire is on the upswing here in terms of what these cars are capable of. And then Carson Hocevar, this is a great track for him. If we look at him in the the Truck Series, he has a 2nd place finish. He has a 16th place finish where he led the most laps. And then he has a 4th place finish in the Truck Series. He has an 8th in the Xfinity Series in Charlotte, which is his 2nd best career Xfinity finish. And he finished 10th at Texas, right? And we talked about how good he was at Las Vegas. So all 3 Spire cars, I think, are in the mix for top 10 finishes, potential good days. We just need that chaos to happen to get them there.
Yeah, so I like this a lot because I think the other thing that we have to think about is like there's a really good chance that Zane Smith is going to be in a Trackhouse prepared car this weekend. With this being like a crown jewel, I feel like this is a type of track that they'd want him to get a lot of exposure and a lot of experience at. So I feel like this is potentially a Trackhouse prepared car. I don't think people realize just how much of a wheelman Carson Hocevar is. Like this kid is really good. Like I think like he is like the potential, like he's the guy, like if you're sitting over there and you're Rick Hendrick and you're like, maybe Alex Bowman is not working out, like how do I go get Carson Hocevar in this car? I think is something that has been talked about a lot. So very talented young race car driver, like you said, really fast here in the Truck Series. And I mean, if we look at some of the 1.5s this year, like he's had speed. So I think we have to at least consider this one. I tailed all 3 of these, but I mean, this is a guy that just finished top 10 on a 1.5 6 or 7 races ago. So getting Carson Hocevar, he's my favorite of the 3. He's also the longest or the shortest odds one at 12-1. But I mean, this is definitely something I think you're looking at here this weekend is these Spire cars. And like you said, Spire, they've spent a lot of money and they're really kind of, I feel like they're in the sport and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, no, they're a growing team, growing organization. I think there's a lot of interesting partnerships they're building as well. Yeah. So definitely, I think this is a team that's going somewhere. If I had to rank these 3, I would say Hocevar 1, Zane 2, and LaJoy 3 would be my preference of these. If you didn't want to have as big of a card as me and take as much risk as I am taking on here with 4 total units of top 10. bets. But that is a lap around the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We just took the checkered flag for the Coca-Cola 600. So we have one thing left to do, and that is drive into victory lane. Stevie, our victory lane pick, we are both on this one. I love it. What do we have?
Yeah, we're going to go to Martin Truex Jr. And I would have told you, like, if you would have asked me, I would have said, like, Martin Truex Jr., probably like 7-1 coming into the weekend. We're getting Martin Truex Jr. at 11-1 to win this race. Like, this guy is incredibly good at the Coke 600. He's really fast on 1.5s. He's been really fast on 1.5s all season. I mean, he ranks third in speed. He was really fast at Kansas. He was really fast at Vegas. Like, what are we doing? My model is showing this as like the best outright value this weekend, and I'm in. Like, I would have bet this at 8-1. So definitely in on Martin Truex Jr. When you messaged me and you're like, hey, I like that one too, let's do that for victory lane, I was like, yeah, we should, because I don't get it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know if people remember, this guy led like 395 of 400 laps here one time. Like, he's very good at daytime to nighttime races. The Toyotas have a ton of speed. He has a ton of speed. I would consider him a favorite, and the fact that we're getting him at 11-1 just is silly. It's silly to me. So, yeah, I'm very much in on Martin Truex Jr. Outright at 11-1 this week.
Absolutely. And we talked about it with Kansas, one of the couple best cars, Martin Truex Jr. in that most recent 1.5-mile race there. So even just looking at like the best comp potentially for Charlotte, Truex was right there as one of the top couple cars. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. When odds drop for this race, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, probably 8-1 for Truex, maybe 7-1. So 11-1 is definitely a gift, and I do have value on Truex at 11-1. It's there, very thin value, but I do have value on it, and I think if you're showing value on it as well, then the old model averaging comes into play, and I like Martin Truex Jr. at 11-1 to win the Coca-Cola 600. So that is going to do it for us. Thank you for listening to the Coca-Cola 6 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. If you didn't get to check out the Indy 500 episode of Running Hot, make sure to do so as well, as that has been available since Wednesday on the Action Network podcast platforms. We'll be back in next week, I should say, as we talk bets for the Enjoy Illinois 300 at Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.